Hello and welcome back to the Publisher Podcast from Media Voices. I'm Peter Houston, and with the Publisher Podcast, Esther Thorpe, Chris Sutcliffe and myself are exploring the people and the products powering publishing, both through these episodes and in an adjacent weekly newsletter which you can sign up for at voices.media. Just to let you know, the Publisher Podcast Awards close for entries on March 21st. Go to publisherpodcast.com and get your entries in now. We're delighted to have Memberful as sponsors for this season of the Publisher Podcast. Memberful is a powerful membership solution that lets you offer membership perks and exclusive content to your loyal audience, giving you full control over who has access to your articles, newsletters and podcast episodes. Take control of your publishing business this year with Memberful. Visit memberful.com/publisherpod, that's memberful.com/publisherpod to get started with a free trial. This week on the Publisher Podcast, I'm talking to Marissa Zanetti-Crume, Bloomberg Media's Global Head of Product. I might be showing my age, but I see the product function within publishing organisations as a relatively new thing, and I took this chance to get a better sense of what the product team at a large publishing organisation actually does. Marissa explained that they are primarily collaborators with a deep understanding of audience and business needs. We spoke about how her varied team of product managers, designers and operations people work to integrate content, technology and commercial considerations across the business. And I started by asking Marissa what the product team at Bloomberg actually does.
My team really supports the media business, and so the products that we look after are really our news products that your everyday consumer uses. So if you go to Bloomberg.com, or if you use our mobile app, or if you engage with a newsletter, we're really focused on really thinking about building a amazing news product for our consumers. Our team is pretty varied. We have on my team product managers, product designers, and product operations. We support the sort of full scale of Bloomberg Media. So I have product managers who are focused on ad product, and they're working really closely with our commercial advertising team. We have a team that's focused on data product. So they're really thinking about data access for the broader organization, and they're working closely with our analytics and our insights team. And then we also, primarily really support our subscriptions business. And so we're focused on really thinking about building that subscriptions business. As you can imagine, as a product management team, we are collaborators at core. And so we're really partnering across the organization. We work incredibly closely with our audience team, our newsroom, really, again, thinking about how we're tying together the goals of the overall organization with a sort of deep understanding of our both our news and then also who our consumers are and what they value from Bloomberg and the role that we sort of play in their lives.
To me, the product function in a publishing organisation or a media organisation is relatively new. We could probably go back, 5 years or maybe just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And there weren't that many product people there.
Yeah.
Now, I get it, and you've just done a great job of explaining the scope of all of that. But is part of it just that idea that single publishing teams just couldn't do it all anymore because there was data involved and there was development engineering type work involved, but there was also content involved and there's also commercial involved.
Yeah.
Is that product function really just about trying to bring all these things together?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think a lot of times I see our role as, in many ways, being sort of a connective tissue. I think, right, first and foremost, a product manager, like their role is to deeply understand the business and the customer and work together with engineering, to make sure that, we're building products and features that meet the needs of both the customer and the business. And I think in media companies, as media companies have grown, and as the role of product in media companies has grown, that's really sort of expanded, and it's become complex in different ways as you sort of think about who are all of the different customers. And to your point, we also support the newsroom. And part of our mission is making sure that our audience is aware of our journalism. And that's sort of a different flavor. When we think about sort of the work of the product team, I think I have some product managers who I think are subject matter experts in a particular area, and they're sort of really going deep in either they're part of the business or they're sort of part of the product. And then I think we have product managers on the team who are really great at doing that, sort of connecting the dots. And so I think where product teams have grown is just our ability to really flex as the business has changed, as companies have changed, as media in general has changed. And so it's been, I think, just like a really fun evolution. I think in product, we like new things, we like challenges, we like solving problems. And so I think part of our job is how do we solve how we do product in a media organization.
So about, I guess, 3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, when Scott Havens joined as chief exec. Within the first year, I guess, he was like, okay, that's it. We're audience first now.
Yeah.
Everything is audience first.
Yeah.
And is that a big part of what you do? Is that your starting point?
It is. I think, as we sort of talked about, as a product manager, part of your role is to understand your customer. And so having Scott and now sort of Karen have audience first as our North Star, I think is really powerful for a product manager, because that is at heart sort of what we do. And we're always looking to start, I think, any project with two questions, which is, how does this help our audience? How does this serve our audience and our readers? And then how does this serve our business? And so I think having that kind of audience first North Star was just really tremendous. And I think it's been a lot of fun to think about how we are actually sort of stewards of our audience and understanding who they are and what they need, and how we bring that to the broader organization, and how as a product team, we're really centering around our audience. And so we've had a lot of fun, whether it's interviews or focus groups or surveys or prototype testing. I think that's looking at the data after we launch a project, hearing from our subscribers. I think that's the really fulfilling and fun part of our job, is understanding how something you put into the world, like how your readers and consumers are engaging with that. And I think that's been really powerful for the organization.
I know newsletters have become a pretty big deal for you. I guess your portfolio now is it 30 something newsletters? Is that right?
It's actually 70 plus.
Whoa.
So it is a huge portfolio, 30 of which are subscriber only, but the portfolio is quite expansive, which I think really just speaks to the reach and sort of the breadth of coverage of our newsroom. Is that as we think about, going back to audience first, and I think newsletters are just a great opportunity across the board to engage with your audience in a way that feels personal and organic, and really connects the reader to our journalists. But I think that's been a really fun place for us to grow and develop that portfolio. And again, really think about sort of building that relationship and community with our readers.
Newsletters are kind of unique in a way, because on one level, they're very easy to launch. There's no huge tech investment if you've got the infrastructure already in place.
Yeah.
But they're actually really hard to then go on and sustain and build and grow. Is that a kind of special process that you have, that you look at, okay, we know we've got a niche here, we've got a very strong reporting team, or we've got a personality or whatever it is, we'll hang a newsletter on that and we'll launch it. Is that when your work starts?
Yes and no. I think, we talk about sort of being audience first. And for us, I think that's listening to our customers, and that's sort of coming from feedback directly that we hear from our customers. I think that comes from looking at just the data and understanding what are people like engaging with on site, where are we seeing users really deeply engage with content. And then I think we work really closely with the newsroom to sort of think about, areas of coverage where there are journalists that we think really are providing sort of a unique perspective and, deeper insights. One of the things we hear constantly from our consumers is that like it's not just the what of a story, it's the why. We did a lot of research in 2023 and into 2024 to kind of understand what our audience was really looking for. And one of the things that kept coming up was this idea of context. And I was surprised to hear that, because that's not just we want news about X. Customers were like, we want to understand the context about why this story is important, why the market moving is impactful. And like, what a wonderful challenge, what a wonderful problem for us to be able to solve. And I think newsletters provide a really unique opportunity for us to do that, because they really provide a moment where our audience is opening their inbox and they are taking the time to, I think, really consume that longer, deeper read that is providing the story behind the story and really providing that context. And so I think, yes, newsletters like perhaps don't take a lot of technical engineering to get up and running, and that's a plus, but I think we really see them resonating with our readers. And, we've got a large portfolio that we're constantly evaluating and looking at and sort of understanding if newsletters are continuing to like really serve the needs of our readers. But we've continued to see growth across the portfolio. And I think that's just a sign that our audience likes this format, and we're doing something right in how we're approaching the newsletters.
And about half that portfolio is subscriber only, is that right?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think what comes first there, the chicken or the egg. Is that a subscriber benefit, or is that a way to get subscribers through the door?
Good question. And I think a few things there. I think we see that our subscribers really deeply engage with our newsletters. I think we have the majority of our subscribers are subscribed to multiple newsletters. And so again, I think that speaks to that audience need of like, I come to Bloomberg because you guys help me understand why this matters to me professionally, why this matters to me personally. And so we've seen those newsletters that are providing those kind of longer, deeper reads are providing real value to our subscribers. And I think we really believe in the value of that content. I think we also see newsletters as an opportunity, as like we think about as a consumer news website, like we want to make that news available to a broad audience. That's important to the work that we are doing day in and day out. And so part of our newsletters are just available. And that is because we think, again, newsletters are a great format for someone to understand our voice, our point of view, what we are about, how to access the news really easily. And so it's a constant sort of experimentation and understanding of like how we evaluate each newsletter and what goes in what bucket. And some of that is just trial and error and experiment and see how a newsletter develops over time. And so it's a living sort of breathing part of our product offering that we're just constantly looking at. But I think just a really great place for our audience to really get to know Bloomberg and our journalists.
Is it become, I know you're on the product side, not on the commercial side, so this is an unfair question, but have newsletters become like a significant revenue stream?
I think what is exciting about our newsletters and how we sort of built that program is we've done it in a way that's really thinking about our audience, and thinking about how individual parts of our audience are really engaging with our content, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's on our website, whether it's a video. And so we think about sort of newsletters as a part of our like cross platform product suite, and we're really focused in on just, again, the audience and how that's valuable to our commercial partners, but really thinking about the newsletters being a place where we can grow both scale through some of those free newsletters, but also creating really tailored opportunities for commercial partners through some of the other newsletters that are focused on more kind of targeted areas.
Talking about targeted areas, your tech newsletter bundle. This is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. One is because it means that I can tell my co-host Esther, see, I told you bundles were a big deal. She's argued with me about that in the past. So your tech newsletter bundle is you're bringing together, is it 4 or 5 different newsletters?
5 newsletters that are in the tech and media space. Man, I'd love to be a part of that debate with you guys. I think we're excited about this product. I think, it was really inspired, again, as I sort of mentioned, at looking at where consumers are engaging, and then also just understanding better, who they are and what their news needs. And we have really incredible tech coverage, and we have really great engagement with that content on our site and within our app. And we also know that there's really strong newsletters in the space. And then we know we have this community of people who work in the tech and media industry who are, again, looking for those insights and wanting to kind of connect the dots. And so the bundle was just sort of really inspired by those kind of 3 data points. And we're excited to have it in market and just kind of understand how it's going to do and how our audience responds to it.
So can people subscribe just to that tech newsletter bundle? They don't need to subscribe to anything else?
Yes.
What's the price point for that?
So it is priced at $11.99. So there's 5 newsletters. Some of them are daily, some of them are weekly. So again, we're really thinking about across those 5, how we're showing up in inboxes, how the sort of collection of newsletters are really providing sort of a well-rounded view of sort of coverage in the space. And again, providing some of those deeper insights that go kind of a step deeper. So again, you understand the why, not just the what.
I think the bundling idea is really interesting. And the conversation that Esther and I had is basically, she saw that as people niche down, you're going to get some unbundling and people just want to, if it's the AI newsletter or whatever it is.
Yeah.
My argument has always been more value equals more customers. It's as simple as that. And I think you're seeing a conversation develop, particularly around Substack at the moment.
Yeah.
That people saying, I'm spending whatever it is, $7 a month on a Substack newsletter here and $7 a month over there and $7 a month there. If I could just have 5 newsletters for $11, that would be amazing. So I think I'm really interested to see how that plays out for you.
Yeah, us too. I think it's early stages and we're feeling good about what we're seeing. I think a lot of the users who are opting into the bundle are sort of first-time subscribers for Bloomberg. And so that's really encouraging to, as we sort of think about niche audiences and thinking about broadening and, an awareness of what Bloomberg covers. Like, this is an interesting opportunity, but I think still very much early stages. We just sort of launched at the end of November, beginning of December. So we'll see. But I think we're just excited for the experiment and to get to know this audience a little bit more.
The other thing I think is interesting is your live Q&A, the audio platform. I don't know if you did, but I can draw a direct line between the idea that you've got personalities driving a lot of those tech newsletters. There's names against them. Yeah. And in the live Q&A is the idea that, well, here's actual journalists answering actual audience questions. I mean, actually, can you for the listeners, can you explain the live Q&A?
Yeah, Bloomberg Live Q&A, it's a feature we launched at the beginning of November, and it is an audio platform. It's available on Bloomberg.com, and it brings together journalists across the newsroom to have a conversation facilitated amongst themselves, and anyone can listen in, and subscribers are able to ask questions. And so it's been a really great opportunity, as I think we've reported on a lot of breaking news over the past couple of months. And so again, that what we heard so clearly from a lot of our audience research was, again, connection to insights, connection to the expert analysis. And so you can sort of see sort of tech bundle, live Q&A. These are all ways we're really thinking about how we use different formats, different mediums, different platforms to just, again, really build that connection and community with our readers. Since November, we've held over 50 live Q&As, and globally, which has been really, Bloomberg has an amazing sort of global reach. And so it's been really fantastic to see our newsrooms across the globe kind of holding these live Q&As in sort of the moment as news is breaking. And we've seen really great engagement, and it's really of the moment. So, we're seeing 30 minutes before we do that live Q&A, we're posting on social, or we're sending an email to our subscribers, or we're putting that on our website. And those consumers who are engaging with our brand are joining, asking really phenomenal questions. And so I think it's been really a great success. And I think, we've brought in some of our talent who's on Bloomberg TV. And so again, really thinking about how we're leveraging, if it's a writer, or if it's an anchor, how we're bringing together the reach of the newsroom. But it's been a lot of fun to see just the engagement and the questions, man. Some tough questions.
Is it a bit like, do you remember Clubhouse?
It's similar to that. But I think what was important for us was to think about, again, how we're just building that direct relationship between the customer and with Bloomberg. And so again, there's that thinking about all of those moments in a person's life. How do we show up in the morning with a newsletter to help you get started in the day? As news is breaking, as markets are moving, how are we giving you the most up-to-date sort of news? So I think it's really, again, about opportunities for building that connection and that community and building that relationship. And yeah, it's just been a lot of fun to build products around that.
I mean, I think from my point of view, what I see is this audience first thing, and obviously you've got all sorts of different ways that you talk about that, but there's two very real examples there. One is, being in someone's inbox, actually sending stuff directly to them and taking feedback. And the other one is the actual live Q&As where they're showing up and asking questions. And I think empowerment is such a crappy word, but I think actually giving the audience space to come back and say, yeah, we love this, or maybe you could do this, or I think that's what Audience First is truly about.
Yeah. And I think what we're trying to do is really, again, understand sort of what needs people have around a news, and how that's specific, to Bloomberg, and the sort of unique ways we can solve that. But also just really understanding people are busy, people are consuming news in different ways, consuming information in different ways. And so, we also want to experiment with format and what are the right moments. And with live Q&A, we've mostly leveraged it so far, I think, to respond to breaking news. I think the recent news at the end of January, when sort of DeepSeek came out, I mean, we had a live Q&A that morning. We were ready to go. We had our sort of, re-promoting that Q&A in our newsletters. And so these tools have just really allowed us to, I think, tell the news and sort of respond to the news in a way that I think is just sort of meeting our consumers where they are, which is something I think we've been saying for a really long time in the product space. But I think we're starting to see that And it's a format that's really flexible. So we're also thinking about, how do we evolve it? Like, what's the next iteration? How do we continue to grow it? Yeah.
So my kind of penultimate question for you is about print, because Bloomberg Business Week went from weekly to monthly, but raised the stakes in terms of the quality of the print
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the actual experience. How does that fit in with what you do, or is that part of what you do?
It is. We talk about format, we talk about newsletters, and we talk about audio, and we still have a really strong audience coming to our website and leveraging our mobile app, and print is a part of that. Like, print is a format that consumers still want to consume in, and that's important. Our audience just really engages with this content. It's providing sort of longer reads that our audience is asking for. There are moments where they want to get caught up quickly on the news that's happening, and there are other moments where they want to lean back and they really want to go deep on a particular story. And Business Week is a place where I think we really successfully do that. And so for me, I think we're really excited about the content that we see in Business Week. And we're thinking again about all those touch points. So yes, print, but also there's a Business Week newsletter and there's a Business Week show. And how do we promote our Business Week content on our site and our app? And so again, it's really thinking about creating those moments where we engage with our customer. And if it's in print or if it's in digital or if it's in your inbox, like, for me, that's all an opportunity to continue to sort of promote Business Week and that content, if it's print or again in a digital space.
So in that sense, as a product person, are you pretty much platform agnostic? Does it all come down to what the audience wants, I guess?
I think so. I think what's really fun about working in product at Bloomberg is it really is a media company that is truly cross-platform. There's digital, there's radio, we have podcasts, we have video, we have print, there's newsletters, there's all of these opportunities across platforms. And we know that our audience is consuming content across those platforms. And so the challenge for us is, how might content change based on the platform, or how might we think about building different features that sort of celebrate the content in a way that feels really native and organic to the particular platform. And then again, just really sort of understanding when our audience is consuming content on what platform. You can imagine our audience is really comprised of business leaders. So there's a window when they're commuting that is really important to us. And that is, think about the ways that you as an individual, if you are commuting on your way to work, like, how do you want to consume information? And that could be a newsletter, that could be through a podcast or show that you might want to listen to. And so for me, again, it goes back to that audience being so central and so critical. And then how do we think about our content across all platforms?
So my last question for you, just to wrap up, you've just listed all that stuff.
Yeah.
How do you prioritize? How do you decide what comes first, or what's more important, or even what falls to the bottom of the list?
It's a great question. I think a lot of it is open communication and collaboration with our partners. And it's, really understanding, and especially working really closely with the newsroom, sort of, how are they thinking about coverage? What's important to them? And again, how do we kind of connect that back to our audience? How do we look at cues in the data to think about where we see some engagement? I think a great example of this is, we redesigned our homepage at the beginning of last year. And there was a particular module that was just a feed of latest news, and it was a little bit lower on the page, but we saw there was really, really deep engagement with that particular portion of the homepage. The homepage at large, obviously, that sort of top news, breaking news is where we see most users engage. But it was like that little idea. And we thought to ourselves, how might we lean into that? And how might we make that do more for us? And how do we understand like why consumers are finding that valuable? And we ran a couple of experiments. And a lot of what we do is experimentation on ideas to get a quick sense of like, do we think this is something that our audience wants to engage with? And the answer was yes. And so like, that is something like that. There's an example of something that we've chosen to prioritize based on like just user engagement and where we want to grow. But I think for us, we're always thinking about that balance between sort of business and consumer, and the job of a product manager is if we can get wins for both of them, then great, we've done our job. And where we can't, let's provide those trade-offs and have those conversations about what we want to tackle when. But I think it's just really keeping a pulse on the data, sharing that. Like, I think it's really important. We work incredibly closely with all of our partners. And so involving them in the decision, involving them in the conversation about what we sort of prioritize and maybe what we not don't do, but what we delay perhaps is, I think, just important, and doing that collectively across the organization. And so there's always disagreements, but I think the good thing is like, I think they're all good ideas. And so, right, it's just a question of how and when. And again, how do we choose moments to maybe experiment quickly to get a sense if an idea is going to resonate with our consumers versus things that might be bigger swings. And so it's really just a calculation, but I think just being transparent and giving, involving people in the conversation about why, I think is important. And we get to alignment, which I think is our ultimate goal. But there's a lot. So
just listening to your listing, even the idea of doing 70 newsletters, and I'm talking about Business Week in print, but yeah, Business Week isn't just in print. It's a podcast, and it's a video channel, and it's a newsletter, and it's live events. It's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. It's a lot, but I think that, again, all of these are platforms that I think our consumers, they're engaging with. And I think you mentioned empowerment earlier in the conversation. Like, we also want to like empower our consumers, like what is valuable to you. And every person who's coming to our site, like, has different news needs, and they're working in a different sector, or they're working in a different industry. And so like part of our job also is actually like, how do we make it easy for our consumer to discover the content that's relevant to them? So in some ways, like, there's so much we can work with, and a different sort of product challenge we're focused on solving is like, how do we put the right content in front of Peter? Like, Peter wants print, he wants Business Week. Like, how do we do that effectively, but also give you the news that you need to know?
So as part of your job, as well as, imagining products and developing products and releasing products, is it also about discovery? Is it about making sure that people can find those products?
100%. I think that is something everyone is thinking about, because there is just so much news and information. And so, and again, we know from talking to our consumers, and I think that speaks to like the breadth of those 70 newsletters, there's a little something for everyone. And like, part of our product challenges, like, how do we connect the right content to you in the right moment? How do we balance, I think, doing that while also showcasing the news of the day? So it's a bit about balance and getting creative. And then again, it's a lot of experimentation and thinking about what works.
I guess checking the numbers all the time.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, data is in some ways a product manager's best tool. And I think that is something that's really important to us, both sort of listening to what our customers want to say, but then actually understanding how they use the product, because those things can actually be different. And so our job is to, again, like, think about how we experiment, we validate, we sort of understand, and again, get creative, because I think some of the things that resonate with consumers are the things that maybe they didn't know they wanted, or they didn't know that they realized. And so that's, I think, the fun and creative part of our our job.
So it's actually figuring out where what they say and what they do matches up.
A little bit. And then just like learning. I mean, again, like part of what I think product managers do and sort of the mindset that I think is important to have in an organization is just constant iteration and thinking about, again, how you hear from your users, you look at your data, you think about how you want to analyze that. And it's always like a what's next. Our job is sort of never done in many ways. And as devices change and as consumption habits change, like we're always thinking about, again, how we meet the users where they are. We're on our toes all the time.
Thanks so much to Marissa for taking the time to speak to us. And don't forget, we'll have a write-up of some of the key takeaways from this interview on voices.media. Or dropping into your inbox every Tuesday if you sign up to the Publisher newsletter, also on voices.media. This season of the Publisher podcast is sponsored by Memberful, a best-in-class membership solution where the content belongs to you, not to a platform. Find out more about how Memberful can help diversify your revenue streams and connect with your audience at memberful.com/publisherpod. We'll be back next week with more insights into the people and the products powering publishing's future. Until then, keep up with all things Media Voices by following us on LinkedIn and subscribing to the Publisher newsletter over on voices.media.